And the outcome of this election, obviously, is not what we wanted. It is not what we worked so hard for. But I am proud of the race we ran.
Tonight, Kamala Harris not looking very joyous, delivering a pre-Thanksgiving message to her supporters, and critics are calling it a real turkey. Harris is awkwardly advising them to protect their power.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire.
Okay, this as Harris's aides are now crying foul, blaming everything from headwinds, trans ads, even swing states were part of the problem during a podcast postmortem.
It's really hard for Democrats to win battleground states.
We had discussions with Joe Rogan's team. Ultimately, we just weren't able to find a date. She had tremendous loyalty to President Biden. I hate to repeat this over and over, but it was a very short race with a limited number of days.
Being up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or we were afraid to have interviews is completely.
But was it really all that? Or perhaps was it her radical far-left policies?
We've got to critically re-examine ICE. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking, that we need to have Medicare for all. I support a mandatory buyback program. Zero emission vehicles, only, 100%.
Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care.
I mean, it could have been the few interviews that she actually did.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Do you sympathise with any voters who do feel offended by or insulted by the garbage coming?
I am running for president of the United States.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden.
Maybe it was all of those terrible campaign stunts that her aides actually put her up to.
Nothing's certain here. Oh, we definitely got it.
How's everybody doing? Aren't you kind of more of a wine person?
What are you having, Madam Vice President?
It's an Oberon, and it's made right here in Kalamazoo, which many are calling Kamalazoo.
Okay,
cheers.
There you go.
Possibly it was the millions wasted on out-of-touch celebrity appearances and endorsements. But wasn't the real reason the fact that Biden and Harris inflation made putting food on the table unaffordable for most Americans, and an administration that treated illegal migrants in this country, and criminals, by the way, better than its own citizens, which led to this?
Donald Trump put up the best Republican performance for a Republican nominee for president in at least 20 years, if not the entire 21st century. Trump gained ground in 49 states and the District of Columbia. When was the last time a party gained in so many different places? You have to go all the way back to 1992. Trump's was the best GOP showing among 18 to 29-year-olds in 20 years. How about among black voters? It was the best performance for a Republican candidate for president in 48 years.
Let's welcome to the show from House Oversight and Accountability, Congressman Andy Biggs. Great to have you tonight with us, Congressman. And I want to get your take on this barrage of sound bites. All these people blaming it on all these things that actually weren't the real thing, because at the end of the day, when it came down to it, it was about her policy. It was about how progressive she was, and it was under Joe Biden, and ultimately the inflation problem that they never acknowledged when they were in office.
Jackie, you're 100% right. They were so out of touch, it's hard to even fathom that she got as many votes as she did. They never acknowledged the inflation and the pressure on the average American citizen. They never acknowledged that the border was a crisis. She was the border czar. They never acknowledged the things that Donald Trump did that he was so successful in. That's why they lost. They didn't lose because they ran all these crazy beer drinking things that she doesn't participate in. She was inauthentic, Jackie.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
It's amazing to me that in a situation where Biden was exposed during that debate in June, there was no primary. She literally was handed the nomination. She was handed his treasure chest of donations and campaign fundraising as well. And yet they still managed to lose, Congressman. And when they talk about the money, she's been exposed for some of that waste. Listen to this.
That you knocked on doors, you called friends, you called in favors. You said, hey, I showed up at your softball game. Now I need you to show up at the campaign office. We raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone, the most in presidential campaign history.
So a couple of things there. First of all, on social media, they were accusing her of being drunk. I don't know. I'm just saying. But having said that, you listen to her. She acknowledges how much money they had, and yet we've seen what they wasted and squandered it on. I mean, she squandered her opportunity as the first female black vice president. So I'm not surprised that she squandered this money. But ultimately, this woman wanted to be leader of the free world.
Yeah, and she is typical of Washington, D.C. politics in the sense that you can have all the money in the world, but you're going to overspend. And that's exactly what she did, Jackie. She overspent $1.4 billion that they're in the hole, and they're having to try to raise money to back it up. And that's part of the reason that she had no business being running for office, is because she couldn't manage the campaign. She wasn't the candidate that was there. She had surrounded herself with people that couldn't get the job done, and they overspent.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. They spent $1.4 billion plus.
Complete mismanagement. And unfortunately for her, that video takes really no accountability for anything that happened. I wouldn't have put that out there if I was a staffer to her. I don't really think she's going to have a future in politics. But real quick, final word.
Yeah, that was what we call in the business bad staff work. Yeah. They should never have let that see the light of day, Jackie. By the way, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. I was just going to thank you and say happy Thanksgiving to you and yours as well.